So we welcome you all once again for this ongoing series titled as Gita Essence based on Bhagavad Gita. Today we're going to start our discussion on the 8th episode, which is based on the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It has hardly 30 verses, but I'm just letting you up front. It's going to take a little time to discuss it out. There are very, very important subject matter which are being discussed. One of the first subject matter which we're going to discuss today on this chapter 8 is about the final exam. There is one exam that we all have to attend to, which is unavoidable. And this is one exam which has to be attended across the species. It cannot be avoided by anyone. Can you think or can you make a guess? What is this exam talking about? That is called as a final exam, which is across the species actually. So Varun is saying death, correct? So today there'll be a discussion on the subject of death. Not exactly in terms of a depressing discussion. However, the discussion would be centered around Arjuna's inquiry, how the devotees of the Lord, at the time of death, they can ascertain or assure that they would attain to Lord's, dham, spiritual world. So here in 8th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna will discuss about the law of transmigration also. Apart from this, there is also a discussion. This is first aspect, which is going to take some time. And the second aspect of discussion is about the subject matter of time. Particularly, we'll speak a little bit about Brahma's lifespan, because Lord Shri Krishna speaks about Brahma in this chapter. And then we'll speak about the material world versus spiritual world. So today we're going to have a presentation where we're going to give you some graphical perspective of the spiritual world. Because in this chapter, just like in 4th chapter, Bhagavad Gita 9th verse, Lord Shri Krishna said, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. Krishna said, one who knows the divinity of my appearance, about my activities, tyaktva deham punarjanma. Tyaktva, giving up, deham is the body, deha, punarjanma, naiti. He does not take birth again. However, in the 2nd chapter, Lord Shri Krishna had already established one who dies, the birth is sure. And one who takes birth and death is sure. So Lord Shri Krishna has already established reincarnation, and now Lord Shri Krishna in 4th chapter verse number 9 says, one who knows the divinity of my appearance and activities does not take birth again, which means does not take birth again in the material world. Where does a living entity goes? That is called as spiritual world. Today we'll do a little bit of discussion on the spiritual world. So from my humble perspective, it's going to be a very, very important discussion, and I might take some time extra, okay? So you have your schedule accordingly, just to help you understand the subjects. With that, without any delay, let's begin our discussion for today, beginning with offering prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashatai Dishatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama Hare Hare. So yesterday we had discussed from chapter 7, titled as Show Me God. I will not go into a detailed recap of this session. However, in brief, I'll just say a few things. The acronym for this was HEAD, HEAD. In essence, chapter 7 talks about where Lord Shri Krishna said, Arjuna, if you want to know about me, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can only know about me by hearing from me, or else in 4th chapter, verse number 2, as Krishna says, Evam Parampara Praptam. Knowledge is acquired in 3 ways: Pratyaksh, Anuman, and Shabda Praman. Krishna said, Krishna explains that you can know about me through hearing. Just like a small child wants to know who his father is, the child can go and ask the mother. So for us, Vedic scriptures are our mother. Vedic scripture act as a mother by telling and revealing who our eternal Father is. So if Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna explains, I am omnipresent. Everything that you perceive and everything that you don't perceive, everything in this creation is my energy. Krishna explains the material world and spiritual world are nothing but because of my energies. Like that, Matah Paratam Nanyat Kinchudasti Dhananjaya. There is nothing superior to me. In essence, Lord Shri Krishna said. So Arjuna had a doubt. If you are so omnipresent, why there is a wholesale denial of your existence? And Krishna said, because of my magic spell. Everyone who is born in this world is covered by the modes of material nature, Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun. Arjuna replied, and mighty Lord, how can we save ourselves? Krishna said, Mameva Prapadyante. The person has to take shelter of mine. And I gave you an example of a master and a dog and a neighbor. If you remember the example that I gave yesterday. Arjuna thought, oh my dear Lord, why you want to put us into so much trouble? If that's what is the highest destination for us, that's what's going to give us the greatest happiness, to be with you, to have your to take shelter of you. So why don't you just force us to do it? Krishna said, no, I don't do that. I do not interfere in the free will of any living entity. There are 4 kinds of living entities who take my shelter, and there are 4 who do not take my shelter. So we had a discussion of 4 types of people who accept Krishna and who reject Krishna. Finally, Arjuna thought and asked, my dear Lord, you seem to be talking only about you. What about other Devatas? And then there was a discussion on Krishna versus Devatas versus Jiva. Like that. And that's how chapter 7 concluded with establishing Krishna's divinity, establishing the process of acquiring knowledge about Lord Shri Krishna, and comparing or telling us or revealing that how the Vedic culture also has a monotheistic stance. In the modern day religions, Hinduism at large gets mocked or joked for having 33 crore gods. People say, you have so many gods. Who do you know who is the greatest God? Who do you take shelter? So no, we have a monotheism or monotheistic approach also to this subject matter. So that was a little background. And then in the end of the 7th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna spoke these 2 verses. I'll not go into the details of these 2 verses, but here Krishna used certain terminologies which are underlined. Brahma, Adhyatmam, Karma, Adidevam, Adibhutam, etc., etc. When Arjuna heard this, he got confused and he required little clarification. And that's how the 8th chapter begins, where Arjuna would ask in text number 1 and text number 2, 8 questions. 6 questions on the terms that he had heard, and there are 2 more questions additionally asked to Krishna. That's how the chapter 8 begins. So chapter 8, we have titled it as Death, the Final Call. So, the death is one of the subject. As I said, there are 2 subjects, but we kind of chose this title because the principle that Lord Shri Krishna is establishing through the discussion is how somebody or how anyone can pass their final exam, and where do they go if they pass, and where do those go who fail in their final exam, is a part of a sub discussion like that. So the subject matter of death is generally found to be very frightening for an ordinary person. However, Bhagavad Gita reminds us of 4 predicaments, unavoidable predicaments: birth, disease, old age, and death. Birth, most of us don't remember about the pain and suffering we went through. You might have seen the small child, maybe if in case you are a parent. Is the suffering, is the pain for a mother, is also pain for a child through the troublesome process how the child is born. And also for 9 months long, he's kept in a closed container called as a womb, which is not, can you imagine you are put to live for 9 months, let's say by a 3 by 3 box. 3 by 3 box is too small. Let's say 7 by 7 box. You'll choke. It's so too difficult in a close container, which is filled with all kinds of disgusting fluids like mucus, stool, urine, blood, pus, whatnot, which is there. So we have come from such a terrifying situation. So like this, Lord Shri Krishna explained, there are 4 unavoidable predicaments or difficulties that we all have to face. And it all ends with the death. The death is said to be a final exam which nobody can skip or avoid. Just like, if you all remember, when you had exams, when you were growing up as a school student, you will remember your mother or father telling you, beta, this is getting late, you should sleep early and you should wake up early. If you wake up early, you'll be able to study well and you will remember well. Yes or no? How many of you remember your parents giving you an advice like this? Not only that, your mother or father would also tell you, this is not the time for you to watch movies, TV, or play games, video games, and not even to go and play sports. We should not do that because you're wasting your time. You should prepare for your exam. Your final exam is about to start. So our mother and father would always advise us like this: sleep early, wake up early, don't waste your time on things which are not required this point of time. So that's for one exam that we face in our life. Now, similarly with the scriptures and acharyas and the gurus or the spiritual masters or teachers, spiritual teachers, they also tell us the same thing. Wake up early in the morning. Prepare for the final exam by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Why chant in the morning? I'll just tell you in a short while when we'll talk about the law of transmigration. If in case I forget, do remind me. So we prepare for the final exam by waking early in the morning. That is what is prescribed. We are told not to watch movies, not to go and waste time in frivolous sports, not to watch TV, news, etc. Don't play these video games. Means don't waste your time in anything which is not helping you to prepare for your final exam. So now tell me, is the Shastra saying anything different than your parents are telling you? So just like parents are your well-wishers, so the spiritual teachers and the scriptures are. They're telling us the same thing. Now the irony with this final exam called as death is, any other exam, you get notified few days before that you're going to have an exam. But generally the final exam called as death is a surprise test. So now you cannot tell me, Prabhu, let me live my life. For let's say for a few years, I'm a young man or young girl, let me enjoy my life. When I grow old, at that point of time, I'll prepare my final exam, because growing old means getting close to death. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada, what is growing old, or what is old age means? Prabhupada said, when you face death, that means old age, because you're supposed to die after old age. So if somebody dies in a teenage, it means old age. For him, the teenage becomes old age because after that death comes in that context. So that's the subject matter here. Is the same way the parents guide you, the same way the spiritual teacher guide us. For a spiritualist, the subject matter of death is not a depressing subject, but is a subject matter of hope. Because he really knows what exists beyond death. It is subject matter of depression only when you don't know what's going to happen after it. Therefore, people do not want to talk about it, because just like, what is the use of it? We don't know what's going to happen after it. So why do we want to talk about it? However, for spiritualists, death is an opportunity to make a further progress in his journey back to home, back to Godhead. Therefore, life or a death, the perspective of a spiritualist toward it is a far greater, you can call it as a broader vision, rather than an ignorant materialist who does not understand the subject matter of birth and death like that. So before we get into it, let's take a look at a quick acronym for this chapter, DEAD, dead, where D stands for doubt, where Arjuna had the following doubts. What is Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adhibhut, Adhidaiva, Adhyagya? And where does this, Adhyagya, the Supreme Personality God, reside? And how those engaged in devotional service know Krishna at the time of death. So Lord Shri Krishna in verse number 3 and 4 very quickly gives an answer. Brahman means a living entity. Para-Brahman means the Supreme Personality Godhead. Adhyatma means the nature, our intrinsic nature. Karma means the activities, the reactions that force the living entities to take a material body in this world. Adhibhuta refers to this Prakriti. Adhidevata refers to who presides, like, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Krishna says. It refers to the universal form. Adhyagya Bhoktaram Yagatapasam, which means to Vishnu again, or Krishna. And where does he reside? Paramatma resides in the heart of every living entity, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. And now comes the final question. How can one attain a spiritual destination at the time of death, which is the subject matter for rest of the chapter, where we come to the second section, E, end of life. Why a materialist does not want to discuss the subject matter of death? Or why they find it a depressing subject matter? Imagine, I'll give you a very simple example. Imagine you have purchased a movie ticket, you've gone to watch a movie in a theater. You're standing on an entry gate. In the meantime, the show ends, the exit gate opens, and your friends, the people are coming out, and among them, one of the person who's coming out of the exit gate is your friend. Your friend sees you and you see him, and you both extremely happy. He comes and he hugs you, you hug him, and like, oh wow, fantastic, we're meeting after so long, and you have a little chit chat about it, and then he asks you, oh, you're standing in a queue, seems like we're going to go watch this movie, and you say, yes, I purchased a ticket for the movie, I'm really waiting for it, I've heard very great reviews about it, I guess it's a fantastic movie. And your friend begins to tell you, oh yeah, it's such a fantastic movie, it's such a suspenseful and thriller movie, what to tell you, man, the one who you think would be a hero in the end turns out to be a villain, and he goes on telling and revealing the whole secret about the movie. You say, hey, wait a second, I just paid $500. You're wasting my 500 rupees by telling me what's the conclusion of the movie. If this is what is the conclusion, then the whole adventure of the movie goes away. Just like similarly, a person wants to work hard, person wants to acquire, have wealth, have possessions. And then you tell me at the end of the day, you're a Tom, Dick, Harry, or the president of a country, or the best batsman in the world. The conclusion is death. Conclusion is you leave everything behind. Therefore, people do not want to talk on the subject matter. They don't even look at that reality, because they think then we are not inspired to do anything in our life, because whatever I do at the end of the day, everything will be taken away from me. Then why should I work? That's another end of pendulum of ignorance. Now, one end of the ignorance is saying that let's not talk about the reality. Other is, after knowing the reality, think that it has no value. Krishna is not telling like this to Arjuna to give up things. He's saying perform your duty for me. So that's the subject matter here. So let's take a look on the subject matter where Arjuna is asking a question, how the devotees can remember you at the time of death. So great, finally presentation came. So before that, let me tell you a true story about death. It's around a few years before San Diego. We had a person by the name of Mr. Prakash Nair. He was a Shaivite, didn't believe much on Vishnu or Krishna, had some little bit of Vedic understanding. And his wife, Mrs. Nair, got connected to our ISKCON San Diego. She attended a program like this, a Gita program, then regularly started attending Sunday program in the temple, started rendering services. She started chanting the holy names of the Lord, and she became quite serious practitioner. Mr. Prakash was a loyal husband. He would take his wife to the temple, drop her, and come back. And then at the end of the program, when the dinner time would be there, prasadam time, will go, pick a wife and also interact with the devotees and have dinner with the devotees. He had respect, but he was not into it at all. One day, Mrs. Nair called the temple president. Prabhuji, please pray to the Lord. And Prabhuji was surprised. Temple president surprised. His name was Badrinath Prabhu. He said, what happened? My husband got a heart attack. We are in ambulance, rushing to hospital. Please pray for my husband. So the devotee said, yes, why not, why not? So apparently Mr. Prakash had got a heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital. He got admitted. After 3 days, the wife again called, Prabhuji. The temple said, what happened? How's your husband doing? Not good. He's gone into a coma. He's gone into a coma now. So temple president said, oh, that was so sad to know about this thing. What the doctor is saying. So she said, doctors have no clue about it. So she said, my dear Prabhuji, can I make a humble request to you? Can you kindly visit my husband and can you please chant for him? Can you please read out a chapter of Bhagavad Gita for him? Because, whatever happens, the ears are the most active sense. If nothing else, at least through the means of this ears, because through the means of ears, at least the Atma will hear. So temple president agreed. And every week he will visit Mr. Prakash. And this continued at least for a month. After a month, again the wife called, Mrs. Nair called temple president, Prabhuji. And temple president Badrinath Prabhu picked up the phone. He said, yes, what happened now? My husband has come out of coma. Oh, fantastic. What a great news. And then she said, but he's not talking to any one of us. He's saying, call Badrinarayan Prabhu. Call the temple president. I want to talk to him only. Can you please come down quickly? Temple president said, all right, let's go. He came to the hospital. And as soon as Badrinath Prabhu came to the hospital, went to the ward where the patient, Mr. Prakash, was there. Mr. Prakash looked at temple president and he said, Prabhuji, 4 times. 4 times they came, 4 times. So Badrinath Prabhu said, looks like he's talking about me. He said, yes. You had been out for a month and every week I came and read and chanted for you. He said, no. 4 times they came. Then the relatives thought, oh, he's talking about us. The relatives spoke. Actually, not 4 times. We came multiple times. The patient said, no. Again, he said, Badrinath Prabhu, please understand, 4 times they came. And the nurse was standing and nurse said, actually, 4 times in the last 1 month, he almost died. We rescued him from the jaw of death. At that point of time, Badrinath Prabhu got a clue. He said, are you talking about Vishnu Dutas? So at the end of life, Yamduta or Vishnu Duta. Yamdutas, Duta means servants, messenger of Yamraj. Vishnu Dutas means messenger of Lord Vishnu. Those are devotees of the Lord Hari, Vishnu Duta arrive. Those are not devotees of Lord Hari, Yamdutas arrive. And then according to their activities, good karma, bad karma, they're sent to heaven and whatnot. He said, no, not the good looking one. The ugly looking one, the ferocious form with the red hot anger eyes, who had horns, who had a very ugly disfigured form, they were holding the chains in their hand, they came. So Badrinath Prabhu understood, Yamdutas. He said, when they came for the first time, I told them I'm dependent on Krishna. And as soon as they heard the name of Krishna, they went away. They came the second time, I said, so be it, whatever you want to do with me, but I am fully dependent on Krishna. When they heard the name of Krishna, again they went. They came the third time. I said the same thing. I don't know anything. I cannot protect myself. I have now decided to take full shelter of Krishna. As soon as they heard the name of Krishna, again they went. And 4th time they came. But then who came? The Yamdutas. He said, no, Vishnu Dutas. And Yamdutas also came. And when Yamdutas came and they saw Vishnu Dutas, they said, oh, this subject is no more our jurisdiction. And they went away. Yamdutas went away. The beautiful looking personalities. Vishnu Dutas went away. And I came out of coma. And then he got hold of temple president's hand and he said, I want to beg you, please give me some service. Now I really want to dedicate my life to Lord Shri Krishna. So if you ever get to visit San Diego Temple, if you see an elderly devotee doing a deity worship, that's probably Mr. Nair. You can go and talk to him and he'll tell you his aap biti, what happened with him. So, death. I just shared one true story with all of you on the subject matter of death. As Garud Puran, as Srimad Bhagavatam, various scripture talks about what happens after death or what happens during death. We just saw one example of it. Similarly, Lord Shri Krishna here talks about how a person can actually pass through the final exam, which means when he departs from his body, as I said, either Yamdutas will come or Vishnudutas. If Vishnuduta comes, which means you have passed the exam. If Yamduta comes, which means you have flunked the exam and you have to continue your journey in this material world. So how do we pass the exam? Krishna speaks in the 5th verse. Antakale chamam evasmaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nasti yatra samshaya. Without doubt, Arjuna, samshaya, without doubt. One who at the end of life, while quitting the body, remembers me, antakale chamam eva, me only, smaran muktva kalevaram, remembers mukt kalevaram, while quitting his body, certainly and surely he comes back to me. So Krishna says, one who remembers me. Just a question for all of you to think. Remembrance. How do we remember Krishna? When we are hale and healthy, then we cannot remember Krishna. When we'll be sickly at the final stages of our life, when the body is in so much pain, can we really remember Lord Shri Krishna? How can we actually remember Krishna? Krishna said, if you remember, we go back to Godhead. But how do we remember Krishna when we cannot remember Krishna right now when we are hale and healthy? Think about it. We'll give you some thoughts on it shortly. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, he says, in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body is in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. The Supreme Lord, therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul. Impure soul means those who engage in sinful activities and who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. And those who have not practiced remembering Krishna all through their life, how can they remember Krishna at the end of life? Srila Prabhupada writes further. Would anyone from the audience like to read? Because this is Zoom, we can have somebody who can volunteer and they can read out. Then I'm going to quote few of Prabhupada purports. So that way it becomes interactive. Anyone like to volunteer? Okay, I see Subhashri as well as Krishna Chandra ji. So let's go with Subhashri ji, aap padhiye, and then we'll ask Krishna Chandra ji. Please go ahead, Mother.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Very well.
Okay. This one or?
Yeah, what is shown on the screen, please read that one out.
Okay. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mother. So, Lord Shri Krishna here has said, if you remember me at the end of life. And Prabhupada says, what is the process of remembering Krishna? That we should cultivate this practice of constantly remembering Krishna when we are hale and healthy. Then only we can hope to remember Krishna at the end of life. Again, I'll speak more on this. How do we remember Krishna at the end of life? Next, I'll speak more. Next is the general law of transmigration. How does a living entity acquires a new set of body? What happens in this life because of which he is able to get a particular body? In other words, how have you got a body that you have? Krishna says, Yam yamapi smaran bhavam tayatyante kalevaram tam tam avaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Whatever you remember at the end of life, that is what you're going to attain. According to those thought processes, that is what you're going to attain the next life. Thoughts. Can you control your thoughts at this point of time also? is very, very difficult. Therefore, we said yoga means to learn the art of mind control. We have already discussed in the 6th chapter. Now, what do we remember? According to psychology, according to modern psychology, when you are in pain, for example, a child, whenever he feels fear, feels hungry, or needs something, the child generally takes shelter of mother, would go and run to the mother. Similarly, when the child grows up, because he has cultivated this practice of taking shelter of the mother whenever he is in trouble or she is in trouble, boy or the girl, when in future the problem arises, again he or she will remember the mother. Let me give an example. As a 30-year-old boy, a grown-up man, chanting has got connected to Krishna consciousness recently. There's a long old story. We had gone on a pilgrimage somewhere in the mountains, and there were some monkeys, and one of the monkey attacked this boy. Now, externally he was chanting all through the journey, through our pilgrimage. When he was attacked by the monkey, what was expected? When you're in fear, you should say, Krishna, Gauranga, something you should call out the names of the Lord. But what did he call out? Mummy! You get the point? Because he has cultivated that shelter to his mother all through. So when he was in a challenge, a crisis, where the monkey, a big monkey, chased after him and he thought he was going to bite him or hit him, he really screamed out, Mummy, like that. So according to modern psychology, what you take shelter of now, when you are put into inconvenience, a little discomfortable situation, will determine and decide what to take shelter when you are in crisis. People generally, when they're put under a little distress, they take shelter of smoke, alcohol, movies, etc., etc. So whenever any critical situation happens in their life, this is what they fall down to, or this is not fallen, they fall back to, or this is what they remember. So if you want to remember Krishna at the end of life, that's what we have to cultivate. We have to have some attachment towards him. If let's say a young man has fallen in love with a woman, he's constantly thinking about the girl. And unfortunately, if he gets into some critical accident or something, because that's what he had developed an attachment to, he's going to remember the girl. And there are many, many real life stories of, people who had a past life, regression through which they realized why they were in the female body now. In the previous lifetime, while quitting the body, they remembered a girl who they had married recently or who they had as a girlfriend or whatever reason like that. So vice versa. So that's the principle being discussed here, the law of transmigration, whatever you remember at the end of life, according to which you get the body. Let's read what Srila Prabhupada had to see. Prabhupada has to say, Srila Prabhupada's purport. Krishna Chandra ji, you would like to read out, please? Please read out. Can you unmute yourself? Try to do it now. I've given the unmute option to everyone. You can unmute now.
Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental spiritual, not material. Therefore, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life.
Thank you. Thank you. So, purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about Bharat Maharaj story. Of course, I'm not going to go into the details of Bharat Maharaj story, but the gist of the story is this only, that Bharat Maharaj, who was the king of the whole world, at a very young age, he took to the path of renunciation gave up his family life, gave up his comforts, gave up his kingly pleasures, all possessions and everything. In search of an absolute truth, he went to the forest, started performing Ashtanga Yoga. However, during the course of his practice of Ashtanga Yoga, he got attached to a deer. And when his end of life came, as you can see, is a very beautiful picture. Oops. Let me bring out a pointer here so you can see exactly what's happening. This is our Bharat Maharaj hugging a deer to whom he had got really attracted and attached. Looking at his beautiful face, Bharat Maharaj quits his body. You see the subtle body of Bharat Maharaj? How the subtle body is entering into the next body of a deer. And Bharat Maharaj gets his next life as of a deer. Law of transmigration like that. So, Srila Prabhupada, or not Srila Prabhupada, Lord Shri Krishna explains, how do we remember Krishna at death? One second. Yeah. It is explained by practicing sadhana throughout the life, living a pure life. At death, you remember your attachments. So whatever we have cultivated our attachments all through our life, that attachment but naturally comes at the forefront of our mind. And that's what we remember. So Bharat Maharaj had cultivated attachment to deer. That's what came in the forefront of his mind. So if we start from today cultivating this practice of developing an attachment for the Lord, and the process of it is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So I said some time ago that I'll tell about why we chant holy names of the Lord in the morning. Just like when you have to study for the exam, early morning hours, whatever you study, you remember, isn't it, for a longer time? Similarly, early morning hours are the best time for anyone to do any meditation. So when you're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you're actually calling out Shri Radha and Krishna. And when you chant attentively, you're actually direct in union with the Lord. It's like the Lord Krishna standing in front of you. And like that, you're sitting and chanting, you're doing this meditation for 2 hours, 2 straight hours, day after day. But naturally, you will remember Krishna rest of your day and rest of your life when we continue with this practice. Imagine if you're doing the same chanting during the daytime, where there's so much distractions and disturbances, our attention span is hardly there. And then to do a meditation and to cultivate this absorption in Krishna is very, very difficult. That's the reason chanting early in the morning. So when Arjuna heard this, he thought, oh no, my dear Lord, how would I succeed in my life? Because at the end of life, I'm supposed to remember you, and I'm supposed to fight in the battlefield. I have to fight with Duryodhana, Bhishma, Kripacharya, Ashwathama, Karna, and so many great warriors. What if, by fighting, just like Bharat Maharaj died looking at the face of deer, what if I die looking at the face of Karna? According to the law of transmigration, I would have to take birth like Karna in the next life. I cannot imagine to be like this. Therefore, I quit. Back to ground zero. Therefore, I quit. So Krishna said, hey, wait a second. You can always think of me. Krishna said, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmarayudhyacha mai arpita manobuddhir mame vashasi asamshaya. Anyone would like to read out the translation of Bhagavad Gita 8 chapter verse number 7 on your screen? Anyone can go now, so I don't have to call out the name. Whoever can unmute first, please go ahead.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt.
So Krishna says Anusmara. Krishna could have said Smara. Smara means remember. Anu means Anusmara. Anu means to follow. Anusmara means to cultivate the practice of remembrance as our predecessors have done, as our previous acharyas and teachers have done. Follow that process. So Krishna doesn't say Smara, which means if Krishna would have said Smara, Mam smara yudhyacha, remember me and fight, then all of us would have the freedom to create our own methodologies of remembering Lord. But Krishna said, Mam anusmara yudhyacha, anusmara. Just like predecessors have done, follow them. In that way, Srila Prabhupada have given us the system of chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we have to follow that. So when we are following Prabhupada, actually we are following Lord Shri Krishna, because Krishna himself said, Anusmara. So that is why we chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna every day. Please, Mother, if you wish, you can read out the purport here now, what Srila Prabhupada writes.
This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, without a doubt.
Yes, thank you. So this is how we cultivate Anusmara. And then Krishna says the second set of instruction, how do we remember Lord at the end of life? Or how do we pass the final exam? Abhyasa yoga yugtena chetasanya gamina paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. He who meditates on me as a Supreme Personality Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, O son of Pratha, or O Partha, is sure to reach me. Which means two things. How do we remember Krishna? How do we pass the final exam? Anusmara and Abhyas. Anusmara, one must always remember Krishna. Abhyas, one should practice the art of remembering Krishna all the time, which means the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Like that. So that's how, through this simple two steps, Anusmara and Abhyasa, we can pass the final exam. However, Arjuna pondered, my dear Lord, how to cultivate your remembrance? So, when Krishna said Abhyasa and Anusmara, Krishna has not defined any particular methodology. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport what Anusmara and what Abhyasa we have to do, because Srila Prabhupada gives us the crux. However, Krishna just said Anusmara and Abhyasa. Therefore, this point came in the mind of Arjuna. So, to answer this, Lord Shri Krishna, this brings us to the third or the second last section of this 8th chapter, where Krishna speaks about two methods, through Chakra Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Chakra Yoga, which means is a part of Ashtanga Yoga, where a person tries to raise his pranavayu from lowermost chakra to the topmost chakra. And then from here, they pierces their pranavayu and the soul, and they go to the heavenly planet. This is all described in yoga science. So for practicing this Chakra Yoga, or a prakar of Hatha Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, once again the rules and regulation of Ashtanga Yoga follows here, which means living an austere life, celibacy, renunciation. You cannot be part of any social or professional circles. You have to be living in the forest in very austere conditions. So once again, it's not a very doable solution for the Kali Yuga. So even before Arjuna could have asked, Lord Shri Krishna himself began to speak about Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is very simple, pure and easy to perform. And Srila Prabhupada made it very simple and sublime for us by giving us a very simple formula. Sleep early, wake up early, chant the names of the holy names of the Lord, read and hear about him, offer an arti to him, take Krishna Prasadam, and go to office for 8-10 hours, whatever amount of time you have to work. Come back again, take your dinner, spend some time with the family, and then read about Krishna. Maybe 15-20 minutes to half an hour about Krishna, and then go to sleep. That's it. You get to do everything that you want to do, and you have just a little bit tailor-made or dovetail your life towards Krishna consciousness, and that can actually give us success. You don't have to leave your family. You didn't leave your professional life. You didn't leave your home. You didn't have to perform any austerity. Sleeping early is good for your health. So everything is win-win. That's the reason Bhakti Yoga is said to be very simple, pure, and easy process. There are some 4 glories of bhakti, which is Prabhupada writes in the purport. We'll briefly touch upon each one of it. Why it said bhakti brings peace? Because karmis, they want sense gratification. Gyanis, they want release from material misery and moksha. And yogis want yoga siddhis, mystic perfections. What does a devotee want? Devotee does not want anything for himself. Devotee only wants to please Krishna. Therefore, bhakti brings peace. Anxiety is only for them or for those who want something for oneself. But bhakta doesn't want, so that's the reason he does not have any anxiety. Second, bhakti cannot be checked, which means it does not have any prerequisite to take to bhakti. In jnana and ashtanga yoga, advancement depends on like knowledge, renunciation. However, in bhakti yoga, only qualification is one's desire to advance. Bhakti purchases Krishna, which means when a person performs Ananya Bhakti, it's a very interesting subject matter of relationship between the Krishna and his devotee. Therefore, Krishna in the 9th chapter calls it to be the most confidential knowledge. So we'll look about the relationship between the Lord and the devotee in the 9th chapter. But look at it, Bhagavad Gita, where did it happen? Krishna said, Bhoktaram yagatapasam, Sarvalok Maheshwaram. Sarvalok Maheshwaram is a charioteer of Arjuna. The driver of the vehicle is telling to the boss of the car that I'm boss of the all bosses. How is it possible? So that's the glory of the relation to the Lord, which we'll discuss later on in the 9th chapter in details. And the last, bhakti liberates us. What do you mean by bhakti liberates us? Which means by the practice of bhakti, the living entity can escape the material world. Escape the material world. Why do you want to escape the material world? What is this material world all about? And from here, our discussion begins on material world versus spiritual world. So this is where I'm going to spend some time now. So far, we have discussed on the subject matter of death, the law of transmigration, and how to pass the final exam. Now is the second very important discussion of this chapter. What is this material world? And what is spiritual world? How it looks like and what it is, where is it? That's what we're going to take a look at it. Lord Shri Krishna in the 15th verse of this chapter says, Mam upetya punarjanma dukhalayam shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never ever return to this temporary world, which is full of mysteries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Krishna says they never ever attain to this world. And how Krishna is describing this material world to which we are largely very attached to? Dukh alyam ashashvatam. Ashashvatam is temporary. Nothing is permanent here. We know of that hopefully. Dukh alyam. Alyam means home. Pustakalyam, the library, the home of books. Him alyam, the home of snow, the place of snow. Sukh alyam, where you find happiness. Dukh alyam, where you only find misery. Imagine if somebody goes to a bookstore to get a medicine. Can you get a medicine in a bookstore? No, it's a pustakalya. Similarly, if our attempts to find happiness in a place called as dukhalya, it's just never ever we're going to fulfill, because the happiness doesn't exist in this world. And Lord Shri Krishna stamps it. This is called dukhalyam and ashashvatam. Not only this, the next verse Krishna says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartanarjuna mamupetya tukanteya punajanmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world to the lowest, all places are misery, wherein repeated birth. Punar avartano Arjuna. The Ferris wheel, go up, come down. Go up, come down. Like that, this is a material world where a living entity keeps on moving from one species of life to another species of life. Like this, Lord Shri Krishna explained. But he says, Mamupetya tu kante. But one who attains me, Puna Janmana Vidyate, he never takes birth again in this world. So question comes, why did the Lord created this such a messy place, in itself? What was the need for it? I'll be a little quick with this discussion. What are the possible things needed for a well-planned city? For example, think about it. You need theater, you might need hospital, universities, colleges, stadium, a shopping mall, a cricket ground, good roads, highways, bridges, buildings, residential complexes, and whatnot. But we also need a prison house. Why a prison house? Somehow or other, in every society, you will always have certain criminal elements who will force the authorities to create prison. So when you have a criminal, there are two ways of dealing with him. One way is to put him in the prison bar. A second is to shoot him. Now, we don't shoot every criminal for petty crime. The purpose of prison house is to purify the person of his sinful activities. So, in general, we're going to put a person in the prison house. So as I said, either put him into a prison or shoot them. But ideally, the person is sent to a prison house. The idea is by jailing them, we recover them from their bad nature. So the prison house is a place where you're provided with the basic facility of sleeping, eating, we have roti kapda makan, very basic facility. But it is not like, or it is not supposed to be like a 5-star facility where you have your dedicated living room, a dining room, and an office space to meet the people. If a jail or the prison house become like this, I believe all of you, wherever you're living in 3 apartment, 3 BHK, 2 BHK, 5 BHK apartment, you probably would run away from those places and join the prison house if the prison house would become so comfortable. So prison house is not like this. Prison house where you have basic necessity fulfilled is not a place for your permanent residence. So facilities are not provided that way. Similarly, this material world is compared to a prison house. What is the need of prison house? To punish and to purify. So what kind of punishment do we get in the prison house called as material world? The punishment that we get in this world is in the form of birth, death, old age, and disease. We have already done this discussion. I'm just doing a recap of it. And if there is a prison house, who is the jailkeeper of this prison house? Is said to be Durga. Durga. Dur means impossible. Ga means gamana, to go outside of it. Durga means she's such a jailkeeper, nobody can escape the prison house of the material world, but can be set free, but cannot escape. So, you have this Trishul of Durga, the 3-pointed ends that represent 3 kleshas, Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika. So the purpose of prison house is punishment, and the other purpose of prison house is purification. Purification of what? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mohamad, Matsarya. Illusion, pride, anger, greed, envy, and lust is to purify those things which we all have to some degree to other. To purify of it is for that reason we have a prison house. So what happens when a person is put into prison house? The very first thing done is changing of clothes. So how does it really happen in this material world when we come here, which is compared to prison house? Jalajanavalakshyani sthavaralakshamshati kramayo rudra sankhya pakshinam dashalakshanam Trimashal Lakshani Pashava Chatur Lakshani Manushaha. So it is explained in the material nature there are 8.4 million species of the bodies option available. Jalajanavalakshani means there are 9 lakhs species in water. Sthavara Laksha Vimshati, Stavaram is situated, which means 20 lakhs. Laksha Vimshati, 20 lakhs of plants. Kramayo Rudra Sankhya, Kramayo means reptiles and snakes. Rudra means 11, Sankhya 11 lakhs. Pakshinam Dasha, 10 lakh species of birds. Trimshal Lakshani Pashavaha, Pashava means quadruples, 4-legged animals. Trimshal means 30 lakhs. Chatur Lakshani Manushaha, Chatur means 4, Lakshani means lakh, Manushaha, there are 4 lakhs varieties of species of humans. And this is what happens when a living entity comes to this world. He has to choose from this many different costumes. So you may say, how can we in a prison house? But because there is no prison wall. So yes, there is a prison wall. We are bound into this prison house through the 3 invisible chains called as Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun. And all our activities are controlled, influenced through this Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. This subject matter will be dealt at details in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So this is the story of your and my existence in the material world. Then in 17th verse onward, to 22nd verse of this 8th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna now begins to describe the spiritual world. Prior to that, he speaks about Brahma. Sahasrayug parayantam aharyat brahmano vidu ratrem yug sahasranam tero ratra vidu janaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. So the Vedic understanding of the time scale is very different than the Abrahamic understanding of the time scale. Abraham means Judaism, Christianity, Islam. They are the subsets of Abrahamic faith. According to Abrahamic faith, the time is linear. That's the reason they say you accept Jesus, you accept Allah, or else you're doomed to hell forever. They don't believe in rebirth. There's no birth after death. There's no conception of cyclic evolution. However, if you look in this creation in the world, everything repeats. Sunrise followed by sunset, next day again sunrise, again followed by sunset. The week repeats, the months repeat, the years repeat, the seasons repeat. Everything repeats. So that's the idea of this is the Abrahamic, and that's the Vedic model, which means there is a creation, there is a maintenance, destruction. Again, creation, maintenance, and destruction. Like that, the whole material world functions. So Brahma's lifespan. Brahma is the first living entity. I'll be a little quick with this. If you're good in mathematics, you'll be able to catch it quickly. So Kali Yuga, so we have 4 ages: Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is 4,32,000 years. Congratulations, we all are qualified candidates for Kali Yuga. We have only crossed 5,000 years in Kali Yuga right now. Dwapar Yuga is twice of Kali Yuga, Treta is thrice, and Satya Yuga is 4 times. That gives altogether 10K becomes the duration, which is called as Mahayuga, like that. Then there are Manvantara. Manvantara means the age of Manu, which is equivalent to 71 Mahayuga. 71 Mahayuga means 71 times into 10K. That is the age of Manu. In the day of Brahma, just in the one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. So now you can do a calculation, 14 times this much. Sandhya Kal refers to the time gap between one Manu to another Manu. That is called as Sandhya Kal. And like this, if you do a calculation in one day of Brahma, the calculation comes as 1,000 times these 4 yugas repeat. There are 1,000 times Satya, 1,000 Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga in just one day of Brahma, which means 12 hours. In another 12 hours, there is another 1,000 Mahayuga. Brahma's time units. So, like this, in Brahma's one day, there are 4.32 billion years. 1,000 yuga, you can do the calculation like that. The age comes out to be 311 trillion 40 billion of human years. What does it mean for us? First thing, we can find out the age of planet Earth. So, in every day of Brahma, up to Swarga, when Brahma goes to sleep, then up to Swargalok, everything gets annihilated. Every day of Brahma, this planet Earth is recreated. So, what is the time that have elapsed in Brahma's day, which is going on right now? So right now, we are in the 7th Manvantara. In one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. 6 Manus have already come and gone, and 7th Manu is here right now, Vaivasvata Manu. So we can easily calculate that, find out the duration and all that. And with that, the current age of our planet Earth comes out to be 2 billion years. So planet Earth was created approximately 2 billion years. Modern science says somewhere around, I believe, 1.8 billion years approximately. And the Vedic, the scripture says 2 billion years approximately ago, planet Earth was created. So we can find the age of Earth. Similarly, we can find the age of universe. Age of universe is as long as age of Brahma. And according to scriptures, Brahma is right now in his 50th year. Is the 51st year is about to start. So which means in 50 years, if his lifespan is 311 trillion years, you divide by 2, you get the age of universe to be 155, approximately 0.5 trillion years is the duration of this whole universe, the time of creation. So we are talking about some huge, massive time scales. A lot of time people in this world say, oh, I don't have time in my life. I'm very busy in earning money. Here we see a sage on the screen who is known by the name of Loma Harsha Rishi, who was blessed by Brahma that he would not die when pralay or destruction takes place at the end of Brahma's day. It was said Loma Harsha Rishi would continue to live as long as all the hairs have not fallen from his head. And Brahma said, in my one day, only one hair will fall. So you can imagine what will be the lifespan of Loma Harshan Rishi, like that. So that Loma Harshan Rishi one day was sitting and doing meditation, and some of his disciples, they saw their Guru Maharaj sitting in a scorching sun and doing meditation. So they thought, why don't we construct a place for him so that, he'll be relaxed and he can does his sadhana, peacefully. While they were busy, the sage opened his eyes and asked them not to waste your precious time in irrelevant things. According to him, life is very short and should be used only for the purpose of spirituality. According to him, Loma Harsha Rishi, who has been blessed that unless all his hairs on his head have fallen down, he cannot die. So, how long is our life? Let's take a look. According to Brahma's planet, how long is our duration? Let's take a look. So here is planet Earth in comparison Venus, Mars, Mercury, Pluto. Well, when it comes in comparison to Jupiter, we come like somewhere here. However, when it comes in comparison to Sun, we're not even here. I cannot even show you. We become so insignificant. So you can see our insignificance here. So the question that I raised was, how long do we live according to Brahma's time scale? According to Brahma's time scale, his 1 millisecond of Brahma's life is equal to over 100 years. Hare Krishna. Congratulations for taking birth in this world. 1 millisecond of Brahma's life is equivalent to over 100 years in this planet. Let's move forward. Discussion is just getting hot now. Now we have spoken about Brahma, we have spoken about material world. Now we're going to come on spiritual world. Avyaktya vyaktaya sarva pravanti ragame ratri agame praliyante tatraivaktya samskai. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. And when the night falls, I have already spoken about the destruction that occurs at the end of Brahma's day. So during the Brahma's day, the creation happens. At the end of Brahma day, or which means during the night, the pralaya happens. Verse number 19. Bhuta grama sa evayam bhutva praliyate ratri agame vashaha partha prabhavati ahragame. Again and again, bhutva praliyate, Brahma day arrives, all living being come into being. And with the arrival of Brahma's night, they all are helplessly annihilated. So scriptures describe 4 categories of annihilation. First is Nitya, which means when you take a birth, you die. That is one annihilation. Second, Naimatika. Naimatika means at the end of Brahma's day. Third, Pralay is Prakritika Pralay, which happens at the end of Brahma's life. But the most important Pralay, about which Bhagavad Gita teaches us, is Atyantika Pralay. This is the Pralay which means the dilution of a false ego, where a person has got firmly fixed in his consciousness as a servant and a part and parcel of the Lord, after attaining which the person graduates or passes his final exam and goes back to Godhead. That is called as Atyantika Pralay. After describing and having enough discussion of the material world, the Kalyam Ashashvatam, the time scale of Brahma, and the kind of pralaya we have to face here, creation, maintenance, and destruction. Now Lord Shri Krishna begins to speak about the spiritual world. What is spiritual world looks like? Krishna says is an absolute nature, which means it's not different from Krishna. is eternal, nitya. There is no birth and death. Infallible, never gets destroyed. Unlimited bliss, fulfill of all desires, is all attractive. It cannot be seen by mundane eyes. It is beyond creation, maintenance, and destruction. It is a param gati, supreme destination. And finally, it's a place of no return. Once you goes back there, never ever comes back to this material world. In verse number 20, Krishna says, Parastasmatu bhavanyo vyaktivakta sanatanaha yassa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyassu na vinashyati. Please somebody read out the translation of the 20th verse.
Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that past remains as it is.
Thank you. Let's take a look at the next verse. Avyaktakshara iti uktastam ahu paramam gatim yam prapyana nivartante tadadhama paramam mama. Please read.
That which the Vedantists described as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns. That is my supreme abode.
So what is the supreme abode of Lord? Let's take a look at it, which is called as Golok Vrindavan. Brahmaji says, Ishwaraha Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Brahmaji defines Sri Krishna, Brahma, the original living entity in this creation. He describes Krishna to be the cause of all causes. So what does it mean? How does the abode of this Supreme Personality of Godhead looks like? So it's a very detailed subject matter. I'll give you a synopsis, all right? So let's take a look here. What you see on your screen right now is an egg-shaped structure, which is representation of one single universe. At the bottom of it, you see this egg-shaped or shell-shaped structure is filled with water, which is called as Garbhodak ocean, wherein lies Garbhodakshay Vishnu, from whose navel takes birth a stem comes out, a lotus stem. On top of it, there's a lotus, and there is a first living entity born directly from Vishnu, known as Brahma. And across the stem, we have 14 planetary systems. Here is the jailkeeper of this prison house, this universe called as Mother Durga. And from Brahma, then creation begins to happen, where 8.4 million species are created, and then all the souls, living entities, are given those respective bodies according to their desires, according to their karmic thing, and they wander around again and again into this 14 planetary system, again and again, unless they are set free of the prison house to go back to spiritual world. What is beyond universe? And by the way, this whole universe, they are kept on the forehead of Anashesh, which is an expansion of Balram. Now, where does this universe come from? This universe comes from the breathing of Karanay Dakshay Vishnu, who resides in Karanay Dakshay ocean in a yoga nidra. And you can see there is not one, but there are unlimited universes appearing from, manifesting from the breathing of Karanay Dakshay Vishnu. So this is called Karana ocean. It is from here the Ganges descended. When Trivikrama had pierced the shell of this universe, so this Karana or Karana ocean water, entered into this universe, touching or bathing or doing abhishek of the lotus feet of Trivikrama, which is called as Ganges. These are just an additional detail. Beyond this Karana Daksha Vishnu, as you can see, there is a Brahma Jyoti. This whole white portion is a Brahma Jyoti, and you can see this rays. Brahma Jyoti nothing. Jyoti means Roshni. Brahma Jyoti means the Jyoti manifesting from the body of a Param Brahma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Beyond this Brahma Jyoti is not the end. but is the beginning of the spiritual world. Beyond this Brahma Jyoti comes the Kailash, the eternal residence of Lord Shiva and Parvati. The same Lord Shiva appears in this universe as Rudra, 11 forms. And the same Parvati from this Kailash appears here as Durga, Kali, other forms of the Devi here. Beyond beyond Kailash comes Vaikuntha. These all are Vaikuntha planets, what you see here, where you have unlimited spiritual planets, where different forms of Lord Vishnu resides, along with his associates. And beyond this comes Madhurya Dham, where we have Lord Shri Krishna eternally residing in Goloka Vrindavan with his eternal associates. And that is the destination of a sadhaka. Of course, the destination could be any of the Vaikuntha planets, any other places, any place in the spiritual world. This is another graphical presentation just for your information. As I said, again, is a subject matter of detailed study, but I've given you some brief synopsis of our journey from the material world to the spiritual world, Goloka chart. Coming to the last discussion now, text number 22. Purushaha saparha pata bhaktya labhyastu ananya yasyantastani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. Please read out the translation, somebody.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading and everything is situated within him.
So the question is simple. All right, I've understood the Param Gati, the supreme destination is to go back to Godhead. How do I attain it? It is only possible by rendering devotional service. That's the only means of attaining that supreme position. So to conclude this discussion on material world versus spiritual world, what is the nature of spiritual world? Is eternal, infallible, full of unlimited bliss, and all that Lord Shri Krishna explains in this section. And finally, we come to the last part of chapter 8, where Arjuna pondered, my dear Lord, what happens to the karma yogis and jnana yogis? How do they attain the param destination of param gati? And this brings us to the last section of chapter 8, where D stands for devotion, from verse number 23 to verse number 28. So various spiritual practices Lord Shri Krishna have described until now in Bhagavad Gita. However, Krishna concludes by outlining the most effective process to attain the Supreme. Bhakti Yoga, which is called as a path of devotion, which means the active service of God in the mood of devotion, Krishna describes it to be the topmost spiritual path. Why topmost spiritual path? Because in an age of rampant temptations and distractions, and with hardly any interest in spiritual life, any process for deliverance, any process for elevation of the consciousness of a mankind has to be very, very powerful, and the result should be very easily attainable. Otherwise, there is no hope for the people of this current age. Thus, if one is able to saturate their consciousness in God, then they attain to their supreme destination. That's the perspective and objective of any of the yoga paths. So how to attain this supreme? For karma yogi, jnana yogi, and ashtanga yogi, passing of the passing at the right time matters a lot. However, bhaktas above the mechanical process, because they always depend on the supreme personality of Godhead. For them, bhakti is the all in all. They are like a small child. They don't attempt or endeavor to struggle to climb and walk on themselves. They just call on the name of the Lord, and Lord, like a loving father, gives their finger to the child, just as a father gives a finger to the child and helps him learn to walk. Similarly, by their dependence on the Lord, devotees very easily learn to become progressive in their Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, and Krishna willing, at this very lifetime, they can attain to the success. That is what Lord Shri Krishna describes and concludes the chapter 8 with. With this, we come to the conclusion of chapter 8, where the acronym that we saw was DEAD, where the largest, where there were two most prominent subject matter was facing death. How do we pass the final exam? And second subject matter was about how to attain the supreme gati, supreme destination, spiritual world, wherein we saw the comparison between material world and spiritual world. The material world is compared to a prison house, place of misery, whereas spiritual world is compared to a place of eternal bliss. With this, we come to a conclusion of our extended session on chapter 8. And tomorrow, when we meet, there will be a discussion on the episode 9 titled as Bhakti Yoga, which is the most confidential section of all and entire Bhagavad Gita. A very, very important discussion once again. So with all this, I thank you all for your kind attention and patient listening. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.